Welcome to this Addendum, oh that word, to Gilligan's Island, Goofs, Airs, and Oddities, Seasons 1 through 3. These are oddities that I've picked up, making my previous video a tribute to Alan Hale, and also contributions from the viewers who've watched my other Gilligan's Island productions. And by all means, if you haven't seen it, go ahead and click on Alan Hale, King of the Oops, and watch my tribute to him on the advent of his 95th birthday. We start with Hunter Kincaid, who is hunting Gilligan, and you'll notice in the background the line of the trees in there. A tree pointing upwards, another one jutting a little bit to the left. In front of it, you might not be able to see it, is what looks to be a cable, which I thought was possibly part of the props there. In reality, it isn't, but maybe you can see with the yellow line off the cable, the line going straight up like that. You'll notice behind Kincaid there is a palm tree that has all the palm fronds laying down vertically. But then when the camera switches over to Gilligan as he's listening, you'll notice behind Gilligan you have basically the same palm tree. And even worse than that, if you look at the upper left portion of the frame, you'll see the exact same contour, the same trees, and that same right-leaning cable in front of the trees. Now, I don't know why they did that. I refuse to believe that the studio wasn't big enough for a bigger background. And you can see, try to memorize that line. I cut and pasted on different frames as we go. Here's Jonathan Kincaid out supposedly on the other side of the island about to shoot Gilligan. And you'll notice the trees in the background have that exact same line, the same trees. In front of them is what appears to be the cable, but this one is topped off what appears to be with a couple of leaves. And I don't know why they would do that. That's a 10, 15 foot tall pole they're putting there just to put a couple leaves up. Later, when Skipper and the professor have hidden Gilligan in the tree trunk, you look over the skipper's shoulder and you will see the same tree line, the same background, and the same line with the two leaves or whatever they are at the top behind them. In this episode, the professor is making the yellow dye marker. He's trying to duplicate the navy dye marker. On the walls, however, you can notice one board after another, virtually every bug, moth, and butterfly on the island that he has collected, which makes you kind of think, why would he have to study so hard when Lord Beasley is on the island looking for the pussycat swallowtail? Especially when you consider the fact that Gilligan's head is hiding it, but right behind his head on the board is one specimen of butterfly that looks very much like the pussycat swallowtail. He has told Gilligan he has added a phosphorescent ability to the dye mark to make it glow in the dark. Unfortunately, you can see the outline of the light bulb that's in the pan that gives the light. In this episode, where Mr. Howell tells Gilligan to turn on the radio, Gilligan reaches forward, but he grabs at the wrong knob. He turns the knob on the right. The radio, as you can see, the knob on the right is the tuning knob. It's the knob on the left that is the on, off, and volume knob. Now, they must have caught this anyway during the editing of this episode, because when Gilligan turns the tuning knob, you will hear a click. So it seems rather than go through the problem of either letting it go or reshooting the scene, they audio dubbed a click over the motion of that knob just to make it look right. Now we've got, of course, the castaways are looking for all those gangsters on the island, which is actually a parrot, and Skipper and Gilligan are pinned underneath Professor and Mr. Howell, and they start to fight, but for some reason, the cast decides to throw a dummy of Gilligan into the pile. I don't know why they thought that was necessary. G. Thurston Howell IV doesn't want to be the rich man's son, and he has a little bit of a discussion with his adopting father, Thurston, who is wearing his black plastic glasses. But when the scene changes, his glasses magically disappear and reappear in his coat pocket. Here is the entrance scene to one of the episodes, the episode in which Gilligan's about to land the water mine on shore that's threatening the island with explosion. They go through the credits and they zoom in a bit, and actually you could hear the skipper banging on the nails on the raft. 2 episodes later, they come up with the exact same entrance. This is the episode in which the newspapers in the crate talk about the Randolph Blake murder case and how someone on the minnow is a suspect. Skipper is still banging away at the raft, but notice the big rocks behind Gilligan, which aren't there when we zoom in on him. This is the episode where Gilligan drank the professor's Keptabora extract to cure his vision problem, but now he's seeing double. And that's okay, until, as you see, this double image, he now looks to his left, and there he sees an image of a rock on a table that's on the right. There is also, in the center, the professor's man-made Geiger counter they used in the Meteor episode, and something that looks like it's made from a gourd to be either a cup or a funnel of some sort. Okay, that's fine. The problem is, when Gilligan turns to his right, he sees the exact same thing, only in reverse. You've got the rock on the table now on the left. You've got the man-made Geiger counter in the center again. And you've got the cup or the funnel appearing on the right. In this episode, the skipper's working up an appetite. He's been hacking away at the bushes and the vines. Unfortunately, the vine is clearly nothing but an actual, real manufactured rope with a little fuzz on it. Invisible Gilligan picks up a pear and some grapes to put on his plate, and of course, if you look closely, you will be able to see the wires. When you're watching this on TV, you won't see it in my picture here, and that's okay too. My problem with the scene is when the skipper goes from behind Ginger up forward to talk to Invisible Gilligan, and you can see the wires directly in front, especially where the hut roof is. And it's hard to miss because the light is gleaming off them, and those wires are still moving. I don't understand why they couldn't have just had the actors freeze, have someone from the prop department come by, cut the wires off the fruit, and then have the man who has been moving the fruit pull the wires out of the way. It is a bit of a distraction when you can see him that clearly. Here is the recreation of the accident of the minnow, and the skipper says something really interesting about the events.
Skipper, right straight for the reef, right for the reef. I know. We're gonna be dashed to pieces.
Gilligan, we've got to maintain a position in order to avoid the reef. Heave ho at the anchor.
Aye, sir.
The problem is, if indeed Gilligan failed to attach the anchor line to the anchor, then the ship would have gained those big holes when it hit the reef. But it never hit the reef, and there's no rocks on the shoreline to create those holes. Now, this, of course, is the opening scene from the first season. But this doesn't jive with what the skipper says in a different episode.
The warhead will be sent down the South Sea Missile Range to an isolated area, approximately 140 degrees latitude and 10 degrees longitude. More on Operation Powder Keg during our regularly scheduled newscast. We return you now to our studio.
Did he say 140 degrees latitude?
Yes.
And 10 degrees longitude?
What's the matter, Skipper?
Well, now, don't anybody panic, because I'm not really sure, but we were about 100 miles east of that position before we drifted for that 3 days. And with the prevailing western currents, well, that's approximately our position here.
In order to have drifted for those 3 days, the ship had to be whole. And this scene from the beginning of season 2 shows indeed the big rocks on the lagoon shore that created the holes in the ship. So there really is no way that Gilligan throwing the anchor overboard without the anchor line attached could possibly be responsible for the ship being lost. Now I'm going to go into some Goofs, error, and oddities that were provided by people who have been viewing my videos on Gilligan's Island seasons 1, 2, and 3, and I'll give them credit for it. A few of these I can't believe I missed, and it's getting hard to believe there's a few more or any more that needs to be found, but let's start off with the episode where the castaways are returning to the island from Dr. Boris Balinkoff's island. This one was found by Kevin Masterson. You'll notice in the top left portion through the trees you can see apparently the studio buildings. Studio City in California. Kind of hard to believe I missed that. When you zoom in on it, it's definitely buildings. Maybe I thought they were white clouds in the background or something like that. And you only have a few seconds to see it. There's another catch caught by a few people regarding the telescoping antenna on an AM radio, which doesn't use a telescoping antenna. Now, this was first caught by Charles Moskowitz and then later by David Garland. Now, if you take a look at the time in the episode where the castaways are stirring their coconut cups trying to recharge the batteries, you'll notice that while the professor is holding the batteries where the innards in the working part of the radio are, the external shell with the antenna attached to it is in the foreground. We'll zoom in on the antenna. So there's no antenna supposedly on the radio right now as they're recharging the batteries. As he puts the batteries back into the radio to see if they're working, he stands the radio upright. There you can see above the batteries that long black horizontal bar. That's a ferrite bar or rod antenna. That's the internal antenna for an AM radio. It doesn't need the telescoping antenna. So the radio is now working without an antenna.
Get anything. Oh, it worked!
But I don't know why the prop department did this. Maybe they just thought it would look better to have an antenna on top of a small portable radio trying to pick up signals from Hawaii. Or maybe they wanted people to believe that it was an AM/FM radio to account for all the music the radio is picking up on the island, since most musical channels come in through the FM band. Here's one that is found. Actually, the next two were caught by someone who goes simply by QUA. Here we have Mr. Howell and Ginger pretending to be sleepwalking as they're going into Gilligan's hut. Gilligan has found the seeds that give mind-reading skills, and they're trying to swing deals with them. As you can see, Ginger is wearing a diamond headpiece. But as she enters into the hut and starts chatting with Gilligan, she's not wearing the headpiece. Now you might think, well, her hair's covering it here, but if you watch the whole scene as she walks in and approaches Gilligan, she's not wearing that diamond headpiece anymore. This one is really interesting here. The professor has got the cable, the telephone cable that washed ashore. They've received a call over his makeshift speaker made out of a seashell from someone speaking in Portuguese, and they starts to wonder, I didn't think that it might be difficult for us to find a caller who is speaking a language you understand. Well, Ginger says she speaks some Spanish. And here you see Lovey Howell saying, well, of course, I speak fluent French and Italian. Now, I've never seen her speak Italian, but she does speak French in this series. Here she tells Gilligan that au contraire means on the contrary. In this episode, when she thinks she's transmitting from Newport, New York, Palm Beach, and of course, Paris, mon cher, when Gilligan, the sweepstakes winner, has brought all his friends into the exclusive club, Mr. Howell remarks, betrayed by one of our own kind, to which Lovey adds, those terrible nouveau riches. When headhunters are threatening the island, Lovey says, well, if I'm going to have my head hanging on a wall, I want it to be properly coiffured and chapeaued. And when Gilligan is training to be an astronaut, Mr. Howell asks Lovey what the time is, and she says, it's so hard to see without my lorgnette, which is a small bit of eyeglasses with a stem attached, very similar also to the old-fashioned opera glasses. So it's kind of hard to understand how they missed this. If Lovey and Thurston had only made a casual French remark every so often, it'd be something you could bypass. But she's been speaking French and making French expressions all through the whole 3 seasons. So this becomes quite a gaffe when you consider what Lovey Howell says during the Eva Grubb episode.
Oh, you are, my dear. You're lovely, you're magnificent. Or as the French would say, now let me see, what would they say? I can speak French.
So that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Please feel free to subscribe and or watch my Penny Profit videos where I talk about the religious, political, cultural, social issues of the day. And of course I'll be posting more videos on the Penny Profit this year, certainly regarding the election year. So thanks for joining me and watching this, and hopefully we'll do this again sometime in the not too far future. Ta-ta!